Hi, welcome to This Week in Property. I'm Jayashree Kurup, I'm editor Magicbricks, and I have with me Prabhakar Sinha. He's real estate editor, Times of India. Today we're talking about a state move which we think will have a big impact on property markets. HUDA allows the fourth floor to be registered as a separate entity. Will it have an impact on the overall state market? We are using Gurgaon as a pilot, as a case study, but we think that its impact will be felt across cities, big and small. This impacts those areas which have plotted development. So Prabhakar, your opening news.
Yeah, certainly it will have a huge impact, particularly in Haryana, as the supply will increase substantially in the Haryana state and particularly in the Gurgaon market, and that too in the premium segment. The premium market of Gurgaon itself, where a lot of plotted development is there. Now, first of all, there are two types of cases here. One, where already the fourth floor has already been built. Now, those fourth floor were not getting registered, so the developer or the owner of that plot were not able to sell those floors or sell those apartments on the fourth floor. And another, where there are plots and the people have built only up to second floor or third floor. Now, potentially they can also build the fourth floor and sell it. So the supply, existing supply itself will increase very substantially, and potential supply is humongous. So, and there's nothing wrong in it also, because when they are going to build the fourth floor, the height of the building will also increase up to 16.5 meters. Besides that, for the fourth floor, they'll have to give the facility of the lift and other facilities also, so that will also improve the quality of life. Suppose living on a third floor without lift and living on the fourth floor with lift, I believe the latter option is better than the first option. So this will increase not only the supply, but the quality of the construction will also improve, because as the height will go up, so the quality of the construction and everything has to be monitored and has to be taken for in a very serious manner. So this is a very good move of the state government, and I believe that prices, but the best part of it, of the apartments in Haryana particularly the floors will go down. I mean, not substantially, for the time being at least.
In fact, I spoke to a small broker, a builder who builds in the plotted areas, and his estimation is that already you've seen a 20 to 25% price escalation in land values.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, they've started noticing a 5 to 7% settling down of values in the built-up property, because there is more stock in the market. But that's a very temporary, 5-7% actually consumers is something that the market absorbs as it stabilizes. A 5-7% is more sentiment rather than.
But the land prices will go up.
Land prices will definitely go up, because think about it. Most of the development today is being done by small builders. A builder who buys a property and a piece of land, if he could sell 3 units, let's assume it is 1.5 crore each, a 360 square yard plot. We did a study on that. 360 square yard plot, roughly in one of the premium areas, South City 1, DLF Phase 4 and so on. It was selling at about 85,000, 90,000 up to a lakh in pre-Diwali sales. Today, the quoted price is 1.1, 1.2 depending on the location of the plot. So you have seen a jump in the prices of plots, because that developer can now get one additional floor to sell. Now that's from the small developer's point of view, from the industry point of view, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
From the consumer point of view, it means that you have more units that are to be sold in the market, and therefore there is a slight settling down of prices. Don't expect dramatic changes, but 5-6% is something that you can anticipate.
And in a year's time, again, it will come back to the same level, because the supply will not be that much humongous that, okay, it will be in perpetuity, it will keep coming. So there is a limited supply, but certainly all of a sudden the supply has gone up, and because of that the prices must have fallen by 5 to 7%. In the independent floor side.
So when you look at it, Prabhakar, there are different sizes of plots, from 60 square yard plots to up to 360 square yard, or even up to 800 to 1000 square yard plots are available in the Gurgaon market. If every plot allows a fourth floor, will there not be an infrastructure issue, especially when it is the smaller units? Because then parking, you have more people per unit. Will there not be a parking and such like problems?
Yeah, density will go up, and the parking, particularly in the smaller size of the apartment, will have an issue, because the government otherwise has also stated that it must be stilt plus floor.
Right.
So the stilt has to be built for this purpose. Now, in this for one car, for one apartment, they are saying that a minimum 15 square meter parking will be required per car.
Right.
So, if you go by that, then certainly for the passage and for the way through, the 60 square meter apartment should not go up to that level. And suppose if they are going there also, then there will be a problem. But I believe that in that case, either they should be made 2 units, but there is no restriction on that.
Right.
And certainly that will create problem in the area where the 60 square meter plots are there. But for the bigger apartments, mind it, now 2 things here. Now, when you have ground plus stilt plus 3, so that means the 3 units are there. So all the other facilities, like the security, like the other safety, supply, and other things, the only 3 units you should take the burden. Now with the 4th unit, now the 4th unit will also contribute or take the burden. So certainly the overall facilities cost will come down, and that is why quite substantial amount.
But with so many more units coming in, will water supply, power supply have to be augmented?
That has to be.
Right?
Because the government, when they are giving this and they are selling the FSI, because when they are going to build the 4th floor, you will need additional FSI, and for that they are charging additional money. And
which is going to the local authorities,
local
right?
authority only. So that money should be utilized for the development of the road or widening of the road, or particularly the supply of the water and the electricity supply has to be augmented.
So as consumers, you have a big role to play. We're talking about a new policy in Haryana and what its impact on the real estate market in Gurgaon will be. We're taking Gurgaon as a sample market, as a study area, but the impact will be felt across urban markets across Haryana. The Haryana government has allowed a 4th floor to be registered as a separate entity. While earlier till March it was allowed to construct a 4th floor, now then it was disallowed, and on a petition by various developers and consumer groups, they have said that you can now register it as a separate entity. What does this mean for the market? It means that there will be almost 1,000 new houses which will immediately hit the market as new registrable properties. This has already made a small impact on the market. We have seen a small 5 to 7% drop in prices. That is the estimate by local builders, and also seen a 20 to 25% jump in land values, which again has been estimated by local builders. So here we're talking about what is the impact on you as a consumer. Prabhakar.
Yeah, now the consumer, now here it's a great opportunity, particularly in Gurgaon market. Now the land is limited, particularly in the old Gurgaon. Old Gurgaon, I mean to say the DLF centers or HUDA city.
The existing lived-in city.
Existing lived city in the Gurgaon. In those areas, most of the land has already been exhausted, and independent floors and independent houses were not available so easily. The prices have also gone up. So this will this will provide a very good opportunity to those who want to buy into this kind of an apartment or this kind of a floors. So for them this is a good opportunity, and particularly to live close to Cyber City and all this area. Now of course right now the prices have fallen, but certainly over a period of time, say 1 year or 1.5 years, this price will be absorbed and the price will come back again because supply is still limited. But I mean at the same time, but I'll say that the more and more people will now try to, who has this plotted development, now they will certainly go for this state plus 4 kind of a construction, because that will provide them or help them giving all the facilities also, and not only that, the prices they will be able to recover of their land, but also supply and other facilities also improve as those new construction will come up.
So it allows you the convenience of community living without having to live in high rises. And that in Gurgaon has been a long-standing trend that we've noticed, that while there are some people who want to go into high rises and therefore the new developer-led premium construction, that is working, but there is a very, very strong market for the single floors.
As you rightly pointed out, but this will have an impact on the infrastructure,
right?
Because certainly as simply the 25%, because from 3 to 4 it is going to go up. So quite a substantial jump in the density or the number of units which is going to take place, and so the density of the population will also increase, and accordingly other infrastructure may not go up, like the road or the water supply or the electricity supply. So I believe the state government must take this also into consideration, and whatever they are collecting from the these developers or those plot owners in the form of the cost of additional FSI or the development charge or the EDC, IDC charge which they'll have to pay additionally. For all this money, they must put into the development of the infrastructure so that the standard of living in these areas should not come down.
In fact, a small provision has been made, because earlier when you paid an EDC and IDC, it went to HUDA, that is the Haryana Urban Development Authority, and the HUDA used to use it across the state. But today, the government has clarified that the extra money that is going to be collected, the FSI charges, those are going to go to the local authorities, the HSIDC, the Municipal Corporation of Gurgaon, the Gurgaon Development Authority, and so on. So what really happens is they're trying to make sure that money collected in a certain area should go to that area only. It's not restricted to the block level or the sector level. It is at the city level. They're trying to give it back to the authorities, which is very important, and that takes care of what Prabhakar said. If you have those resources, you're collecting the resources, now you as consumers, it's very important that you start clamoring for augmentation of those facilities, so that suddenly you realize that there are 100 more houses in the same street, but the water supply quality has gone down, or the electricity quality has gone down.
Yeah.
Now this is something that you must be vigilant. Today, we have realized that any kind of quality of life depends on how vigilant you are as a consumer and interested stakeholder. Ultimately, you are the one who's going to be using those services. Right? Prabhakar, we started getting a few queries. I thought maybe we should start picking up the queries. There's Nitin Verma of Sushant Lok, who says, I live in Sushant Lok and have a 4th floor constructed. Will this decision be implemented on already constructed floors as well?
Yeah, exactly.
The government has clarified that even if it is constructed earlier, if you pay the additional fee, you can get it registered in your name. So Nitin, that seems to be good news for you.
In fact, when all these guys, particularly many of the people, had already constructed the 4th floor, as per the government assurances that they are going to bring in this kind of a policy. But then they delayed it, and the registration, as you have pointed out earlier also, that construction was allowed, but it was within that unit. Number of units remained 3 only, though the 4th floor was allowed. So the 4th floor separate registration was not allowed. But now the people approached Chief Minister that the separate registration of 4th floor should also be allowed, so that they could monetize it and they could give it to the separate unit holders. So that has been just allowed now, that okay, now the 4th floor registration as a separate unit will be allowed. So that is the new change.
While we are talking about the Haryana law, governments across cities have started realizing that a single unit on a full plot, it does not seem to be the norm. Today family sizes have come down, the buying capacity has come down, and therefore individual floors seem to be the order of the day. And recently in Noida and Greater Noida as well, there is a move that this should be allowed as well.
Particularly those those areas where metro is going, where the wide roads are passing through. Both sides of that metro, particularly in Noida, they have said it that 500 meter both sides of the metro, additional FSI will be allowed, half a percentage point additional FSI will be allowed, and to consume that FSI, certainly the floor size has to be increased, only then that FSI will be consumed, and so the height of the building will be increased to accommodate the additional floor.
So Prabhakar, let me go to the next query. We have a few more queries that are coming up. There's Sarit of DLF Colony who says he's got a house in old DLF Colony. Right now it is ground plus 3 floors. Can I construct one more floor? Will it be a legal construction as per the current policy? Now there are going to be many queries like this for people who live in ground plus 3 constructions. But remember, this extra FSI is for those that have stilt plus 4 floors.
Exactly.
So if you need to do
They'll have to
something,
demolish that entire
you will
thing,
have
they'll
to
reconstruct.
demolish and rebuild, because the old construction did not have stilt plus 3 floors. They had 3 floors from ground upwards. Many of them had basements also. Today you can build a basement if you like and then go for a stilt, but our feedback from developers is that the basement is not in so much demand, and therefore they would rather not give that up because there's additional cost. Which really means that if you have already an existing unit, what happens is that all 3 buyers, if you're looking at single floors, that means all 3 owners have to agree to demolish the structure and rebuild it.
Yeah.
Then you can have take benefit of the new policy, right?
Exactly. Or otherwise, a single ownership, that house is still
Yeah.
there. Then if he decides to do that, why? Mainly because the stilt is required today.
Yes.
Because the government is very particular about the provision of the parking.
Right.
Now, in the normal houses, normally the parking is outside the house.
Right.
Now, government is saying that this will not be allowed anymore. You will have to have provision of the parking inside your plot itself, and for that, this kind of a construction and the stilt will be required.
Absolutely. So please be very sure that the government is not saying that on existing houses just build another floor. If the provision of stilt parking has been provided, only then can you go for an
Yeah.
additional unit.
And then the construction of the house is also, strong enough to withstand the 4
Absolutely.
floors weight and all. So
Remember that normally foundations are laid according to what weight the structure is supposed to hold. So when you had planned for a 3 floors structure, the foundation would also have been planned for that much. There is always a small buffer that's given, but nobody can estimate whether that will not crumble when you build an additional floor for which the foundation provisions have not been made. So please, if you're planning any such thing, assuming that you have stilt parking, which is the precondition, then you will have to go to a structural engineer before you construct
exactly,
a
and the
floor.
provision of lift and all that has to be given in that.
Yes.
Because ground plus 4 is very high. So,
Yes.
normally it is provided, it has to be provided with the.
It is almost like climbing 5 floors.
Yeah.
And climbing 5 floors by stair is not an option. It is rather difficult, which is why this provision has been made. Let's go to the next query, that is Mohit Singh of Sector 29. Is this policy applicable across Haryana or only in Gurgaon? Can all Gurgaon locations have 4th floors? Please guide.
Yes.
It is available
Haryana.
across Haryana. It's a state government provision and not a city government provision. As a result, places like Karnal, Faridabad, Sonipat, Panipat, Rohtak, Panchkula, all these
All this.
are covered by this law, and everywhere the provision is that you should have stilt parking, you should have a lift, and it can be stilt plus 4 floors.
Yeah, here in fact I would like to add that other state also is considering similar kind of a policy, particularly near the corridors of, say, the metro corridor or rather the road network, large road network corridor. In Delhi particularly, they were earlier considering, and they had already announced it, that they will be giving additional 0.5 percentage point of a charge on all the apartments or the houses on both the side of the 500
But it has
meter.
come into
It
the
has
master
not come
plan.
as master plan
Yeah.
as yet. But they are considering to do it.
Right.
Similarly, the UP government in Noida, they have already done it, that 0.5 percentage point additional FSI is granted. So, because of now, as you have already pointed out, that as the space is high in demand, so the space utilization will increase certainly as the time will pass. So, this kind of a thing, this kind of a provision is going to come, but then the quality of the construction, quality of other facilities will also go up,
Yeah.
so that the quality of life living in those apartments should not come down.
Absolutely, and that's where your vigilance as a citizen group, structure yourself into groups at block level, at sector level, at development levels, and make sure that you are vigilant about the quality of life. You don't want that to be compromised, and therefore you as the user bodies should be putting pressure. We have seen this in the case of primary markets, where unless the consumer comes forward, the city authorities
Yeah.
don't seem to respond. But when the consumer comes forward, it is like a groundswell. When the number of consumers are so high and the volume of payment, consolidated payment is so high, that's when the government start taking heed of you. And today that movement has already begun. We are running a campaign on primary markets, hashtag complete stuck projects. We think that what you have to work for is I want the quality of life to be maintained. And that's the reason why the government is collecting that additional FSI money and should be utilizing it correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Let's go to Dhiren Kumar of Gurgaon. I have an independent house in Gurgaon. I have ground plus 3 floors. Can I have one more floor? We've just answered a query like this. You cannot have another floor unless it is master planned, unless it is sanctioned by the authorities.
Yeah.
You have to get a new plan sanctioned. You have to go to the DTP authorities. You have to pay that differential amount. You have to get the plan. The DTP has to actually say that this building can take the load of one more floor,
Yeah.
right?
But here I will add one thing.
Yeah.
Now, if he owns one plot and he has already constructed 3 floors, so now for the 4th floor, he will have to go for the approval
Right.
that he wants to construct the 4th floor. He can construct it also without building the stilt because he doesn't want to register it.
Yeah.
So the moment
If you want to register it as a separate
Unit.
that's when you need a lift and
Lift.
you need a stilt parking.
Stilt parking, exactly.
Right. If you are an individual who has 3 floors and you're using the 3 floors yourself, it is registered in your own name, then maybe you do need approval to build the 4th floor,
Yeah.
but you don't need to, but you can't register it as an independent unit if there's no stilt parking.
Exactly.
Right. Latika Kaur says, will you have to pay higher property tax in case you have 4 floors? What is the status? The property tax is on the basis of amount of square foot. Right?
Yeah, amount of built up the square
Built up
foot.
square
Yeah,
foot.
so
So
you
of
have to-
course, one extra floor means that much more property taxes.
Yeah.
If you have more
Proportionately
property,
that much high.
yeah, proportionately that much high. If you have more property, you have to pay more taxes.
Yeah.
It is based on the calculation of whatever the amount is into number of square feet,
Yeah.
built up square feet.
Which is certainly very, minor amount, so I don't think that anybody will hesitate building the 4th floor just because of the
Because the
property tax.
amount you get out of that floor is more. What its propensity to pay for itself is much more than
Yeah.
the amount of property tax
Tax.
increase that is there.
Yeah.
Ravish Sahu says, can I have 4 and 1 toilet on the rooftop? How do I check whether that is legal or illegal? You know, the human mind will never be satisfied. We had the 2.5 floor policy. When the government changed it to a 3 floor policy, there was much celebration, but then everyone wanted a 4th floor. Today the government is saying you pay a penalty and construct a 4th floor. It is legal. Now you want to take your toilet to the top floor. That's really not the idea. I don't think that is allowed. That is as things stand today, it's illegal, but you can always check with your approval authorities whether they will give you permission. Ultimately, you can't build anything. Just because we as journalists have written about a policy, you can't go ahead and build. You have to get all your approvals in place.
It's like, you have been allowed to build up to 4th floor. The 4th floor unit, you want to build 5 toilet or 3 toilet or 2 toilet, that's up to you.
But you can't go to a 5th floor to construct a toilet. I don't think it's in the laws, but you can check with
No, you
the
can't do
approval
it.
authorities.
Simply, it's not allowed. It's not allowed.
Abhishek of Sector 48 says, I had constructed a 4th floor recently. When can I get my property registered? Will I need to submit an approved layout plan before the registry?
Yeah, obviously.
You do. So Abhishek, what you have to do, they have clarified that those houses which were built, the 4th floor was built even before you had got all the permissions, you will have to go back to the approvals authority, submit your plan, pay the enhanced amount and that as a fee, and then get the approval for that. Once that approval comes only, can you register that unit, right?
It should meet all the requirement of as per the new plan, and then only they will give you the approval and you can register it in a separate unit.
If the development authority has not approved your plan, the city authority has not approved your plan, it is illegal. Nobody will register it. The first thing is to get the approvals
Exactly.
in place. pay the enhanced amount so that that money can be used to augment the facilities on in the city. There is Prakash Rao who says, don't you think the approval process will create corruption as owners will have to pay the officials for getting their plans approved for 4th floor? Will there be a single window approval process for this? Prakash, you're right. There is a lot of corruption in the approvals authorities, and that is something that most people don't speak about. We do acknowledge that yes, it can lead to officials asking for more, but today at least we can talk about Gurgaon. Even though this does not come under RERA because it is less than 6 units, the RERA regulator in Gurgaon says that if there is any hanky-panky in the property markets, you can approach the RERA authorities, and he says that he will address it. Whether he has the jurisdiction, it's too new a law, it is being interpreted, and there are many interpretations of the law. But Prabhakar, we have spoken to him and he has said, right?
Yeah, he said that the buyers can come and can file an application on that, complain on that. And RERA will interpret the law, and as per their present interpretation, they can intervene into any deal where a developer is selling it to the buyer, and if the buyer or the developer and buyer is not meeting that contract which they have signed. But so far as the approvals goes, ultimately approval is required, particularly in India. Abroad also self-certification has to be done, that you just self-certify that okay, I am going to build the 4th floor as per the plan and everything. But
that plan has to be submitted to the authorities, and there is a scrutiny that happens. They assume that you have taken an architect's and structural engineer's view that it
will certify that.
Those professionals are liable to prosecution if you don't.
And then only you can construct, and then but it is open to inspection. Authority can come and inspect any time, and if they find any violation of the rule, then they will cancel that entire thing, and they will put heavy penalty on you, or might be even that entire construction has to be raised to the ground.
Right. Prabhakar, let's talk about the other big market in Haryana, which is Faridabad. Faridabad too has a very large number of plotted sectors.
Yeah.
And the property value in Faridabad has remained far more depressed than, say, the richer twin, which is Gurgaon.
Yeah.
How will this impact the Faridabad market? Let's talk about what are the things that go for the Faridabad market today.
Now, two things here. Now, in Faridabad market also, there are certain pockets where all the facilities are available.
Right.
Now, the normally people's tendency is to go and live in that area.
Right.
Now, so the vertical development starts happening. So now, in those markets, but the sector 25 or 26 in Faridabad, in those areas where I am told that development is very good or all the facilities are available, normally those who have only 2-floor or 3-floor houses, they might go for the ground stilt plus 4-floor construction so that more people can be accommodated and they can make money also.
Stilt plus 4 is across Haryana, right? Every city in Haryana. So whether you're in Kundli, Manesar, Kundli, Sonipat, Panipat, Faridabad and so on, everywhere the same law applies.
Yeah. So now only thing is this, that such tendency will not happen only if in the similar area the ground development, the independent ground development is not costlier than this. So now suppose if I am going to build a 4th floor, say for 1 crore rupee, I am going to buy, I can buy it. Now if I will buy a ground floor house somewhere, now if that is available for 70 lakhs, certainly I will not build that 4th floor.
Right.
But if the ground floor I am going to get for 1.5 crore or 2 crore, then certainly I will build the 4th floor.
Right.
So it all the market dynamics.
It's the economics of the market
that will make people to build the 4th floor.
Yeah.
And when in any market where the horizontal development is possible, the many area where all the facilities have already come up, then the people might decide to go to that side, like if you go to the Sonipat.
Yeah.
Now in Sonipat market, huge tract of land is already well developed and still it is not being utilized. And so the vertical development, though the high-rise apartments are there, but that is a separate kind of a living.
Sure.
But if the independent floors market are to be adjust, then I believe that still in the Sonipat market it will be ground plus 1 or ground plus 2 kind of a market will be more I mean, in demand rather than ground plus 4 or ground plus 5.
Right.
So, but every kind of a construction has its own charm, because if you want to live together, 3-4 families, so certainly you would like to build a street for 4+4 and live together. So it all depends on the various dynamics, but the demand is everywhere.
Definitely there. And here we would like to say that the reason why I'm picking up Faridabad for discussion is that Faridabad has a few new things going for it. One, the metro is already active. The KMP Expressway has given a fresh lease of life to the Faridabad market. This with increasing demand and connectivity, we expect that is these are
FNG yeah, going to come up, so that will increase the connectivity to Noida also and Gurgaon also.
Yes.
So all those kind of a construction certainly going to add value to Faridabad very soon. Right now Faridabad is a depressed market. It's a very, I mean, if you see it, I'm told that the Faridabad took off much before the Gurgaon itself.
But it was developed as an industrial city.
Yeah.
And unlike Noida, which repositioned itself very quickly into a residential hub, Faridabad remained an industrial city primarily to accommodate those people who work in and around the industries that were functioning in Faridabad. But today what's happened is there are fresh drivers which can give it a residential push. One is of course that the metro has connected Faridabad very well. Because that metro connects it to West Delhi through the Magenta line, to Noida through the Magenta line, to Central Delhi through the Purple line itself. There is a lot of connectivity that has been...
The NH itself.
The NH itself.
Now the Lotmany flyover has already been built, so now most of the moment you cross the Friends Colony on that expressway, now there is no light till Faridabad, Bata Chowk, even ahead of Bata Chowk you keep driving, and that entire area has become now completely red light free.
Yeah.
So that's certainly going to add value to that entire area.
Ease of travel always impacts residential real estate markets.
No doubt.
And also the fact that it is still a affordable market, and with these new policies, if you see some kind of growth happening, that is going to prove a trigger for more people to look at Faridabad very seriously. Also, Faridabad has been picked up for incorporating smart features in the city, which means that the waste management, the water supply, the drainage systems, all these are to be augmented as part of an Amrut city. Because of all this, we think that there is a likelihood that you should be seriously looking at what is happening in the Faridabad market. And like we said, one huge infrastructure project, the KMP Expressway, the Western Peripheral Expressway, has been inaugurated last week by the Prime Minister. That connects it to Gurgaon on one side and Manesar industrial area, and like Prabhakar said, the FNG corridor is also coming up at a healthy pace, right?
Yeah.
The work is progressing, and therefore you will see that connectivity to Noida will also give Faridabad a fresh lease of life. Consider that market, keep watching that market, because we think that is a market of the future. Just a couple more queries and then we'll close the show. We've got Mukesh Kumar who says he's planning to buy a builder floor in Gurgaon. The builder is stuck because of approval issues of 4th floor, so I didn't buy at that time. Can I buy now or should I wait?
Yes.
You can buy now, but the developer has to go back to the authorities, get the clearances, he has to pay that excess amount and get a approval. Buy only after that approval comes, otherwise you'll find that the developer sell it to you and walk away, and you'll find that there is no registry.
I mean, buy only with the condition that developer registered the property in your name. Ask him that process, and the registration can be done only if the developer will have all the permissions.
Yes.
And now when the permission is taken, go and buy it. No issue.
So just because you've seen it in the media, don't go and buy. Check the approvals, check that the developer has paid his excess amount and that he's got the approval for registry. There is also Amitesh Verma of Gurgaon Sector 41 who says, is it possible to have a basement plus parking and 4th floor?
Yeah.
Will it be allowed by the Gurgaon authority? How to find clarity on this? You are allowed to create a basement in stilt plus 4 housing. The government gives you approval for it. There is an enhanced cost, because if you go for basement plus stilt, there is an enhanced cost. So you must be very clear that either you need it for personal use or that you need it, you will be able to sell it in the market. Otherwise, most developers find that they get stuck with basements where they sell the 4 floors, but they find it difficult to offload the basement.
Because it increased the cost of construction of the entire project.
It does.
Usually.
Do you know what percentage basement? It should have about a 5-7%.
No, more than that.
More
than that.
Okay.
15 to 20%.
This is an estimate that we are giving, about 15 to 20%, but definitely an enhanced cost. We'll check back with developers and come back to you with these answers. There is Ritesh Mathur of Sushant Lok, who has 4 floors and 2 rooms on his rooftop. Authority sent me a notice to demolish 1 floor and 2 rooms on the 4th floor rooftop. What will be the implication after this order? Ritesh, you have a house which doesn't have stilt parking. This new law is only for those houses that have a stilt parking. If you want to get the benefit of the 4th floor, you have to have 2 preconditions over and above what used to be in the Gurgaon market. One is that you must have stilt parking. All the 4 floors, their cars will be parked under the house itself and not on the streets. The second thing is that with almost 5-floor height, you have to have lifts. It's impossible for anyone to keep using the stairs.
Like in Delhi, it is not allowed.
It's not allowed.
It's not allowed. If you are building the ground plus 3, then you'll have to go for the lift, or the 4th floor will have the lift. Only up to 3 floor, ground plus 3 floor is allowed.
Yeah.
Ground plus 4th is not allowed.
Yes, and there you have to have a lift. So these are the 2 things you have to have. From what you've said, I think you have just added on a couple of rooms or something like that, and you may not have a lift and you may not have a stilt parking. Without stilt parking, I don't think this facility comes to you. We'll take our last query of the day. This is Karna Singh of Delhi, who says, I live in Delhi and I'm searching for a builder floor in Gurgaon. Can I consider a builder floor apartment now over a high rise after this order? Who will pay the extension fee, builder or buyer? There is no extension fee. There is a fee that has to be paid by the builder for approval of the 4th floor. It is not that an extension of the same unit is happening. If it has already got stilt parking, then he can consider paying an additional amount and getting it. Otherwise, if it is an old unit, you have to bring it down and build it with stilts, because the government does not want cars to be parked on the street. People run out of street space, and that's why they are saying if you want excess units, you have to be able to accommodate the parking within the units themselves. And that's where we're going to stop this show. Thank you so much for watching This Week in Property. I'm Jayashree Gurugram and this is Prabhakar Sinha.
Please subscribe to Magicbricks on YouTube and click the bell icon to get new videos.